How long do you put up with it? Whether you're trying to fix what's broken or just trying to learn to stop fighting the system. Thanks for finding me on Coffee with Dubs. Today we're talking about when helping becomes harder than the problem itself.
Good morning and welcome back to Coffee with Dubs. You know, sometimes the hardest part of helping isn't solving the problem. It's watching people protect the system that created it. I've been thinking about that a lot lately because there's a strange kind of frustration that comes with caring enough to notice something, putting in real effort to make it better, and then watching that effort get quietly undone. Not because the idea was harmful, not because the problem disappeared, simply because the system decided the solution you brought didn't fit the way things are usually done. And the best metaphor I can think of is like a leaking boat. If you imagine you're standing on a boat with a slow leak in the floor. Everybody around you knows the boat's taking on water. Everybody complains about the problem of bailing it out and how much effort it takes. Everybody agrees that eventually something needs to change. So you find a piece of wood, you patch the hole, and for a minute, that problem seems smaller. Then, out of nowhere, somebody goes and removes your patch. Not because it didn't work, but because it wasn't an approved patch. That's the part that bends my brain. There are systems everywhere that become more committed to protecting procedure than solving the problem that the procedure was supposed to address. People get used to doing something one way that even a useful change starts to feel like a threat. The question stops being, does this help, and quietly becomes, who told you you could do that? That's how good ideas die. Not always with dramatic rejection. Sometimes they die under paperwork, habit, or someone deciding that staying comfortable is somehow safer than trying something different. What makes it worse is that people closest to the problem can often see the value immediately because they're the ones often dealing with the consequences daily. That's where the frustration starts turning into something heavier, because once you know there's a better way, it becomes difficult to keep pretending the old way makes sense. You start noticing how much energy gets wasted working around problems that could have been addressed directly. You watch resources disappear into choices that don't actually fix a damn thing, and you wonder whether the system has confused consistency with competence. I think the real danger is bureaucracy. The system can become so focused on preventing mistakes that it also prevents initiative. The people inside slowly learn that bringing a solution creates more friction than simply accepting a problem. Eventually, the smartest move becomes keeping your head down while doing exactly what's expected, even when everyone can see what's expected isn't working. And that's a terrible way to build anything, because progress usually starts with somebody being willing to say, what if we tried this instead? That sentence sounds harmless, but in a rigid system, it can feel almost rebellious. Not because the idea is extreme, but because it interrupts the illusion that the current method is the only reasonable one. People will tolerate a broken process for years if fixing it requires admitting that the process was broken in the first place. That's why I think the emotional part matters so much. When you care, you naturally want to contribute. You want to bring something useful to the table, but if every attempt gets shut down, corrected, or quietly reversed, you eventually reach a point where you start asking whether the energy is better spent somewhere else. That isn't quitting. Sometimes it's discernment. There's a difference between giving up on a problem and recognizing that you can't force people to accept a solution they're committed to rejecting. That lesson is a hard one for people to naturally fix things, because fixers tend to believe that if they can just explain the logic clearly enough, everybody will eventually come around. They don't always. Sometimes people would rather keep bailing water than admit that a patch worked. And at that point, you have to decide what belongs to you. Your responsibility is to notice, to contribute when you can, to speak honestly when you see something that doesn't make sense. Your responsibility is not to carry an entire system on your back just because you're the first person to admit that the boat was leaking in the first place. Because caring without boundaries turns into resentment. You start every day ready to help and end every day angry that nobody listened. Eventually, the problem isn't just the system anymore. The problem is that you've allowed the system to consume all of the energy you were trying to bring into it. I don't want to become that person. I don't want frustration to turn me cynical. I still want to notice the leak. I still want to offer the patch. But I'm learning that if somebody keeps ripping it off, sometimes the healthiest thing is to stop fighting over the wood and let the people in charge of the boat decide how wet they're willing to get. Thanks for joining me on another Pour Coffee with Dubs. Until next time, remember that helping people doesn't always mean convincing them. Sometimes it means offering a solution clearly, standing by your values, and knowing when to step back before somebody else's broken system becomes your personal responsibility. Now, I'm off to the machine. Have a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow, because I'm out of here.